What's up? Curious youngsters? Every day without realizing it, we consume hundreds of products. And while some are pretty obvious in how they were made, others have a really interesting process behind them. And even though many people don't stop to think about how complex the process is. Behind the Swiss Army knife you use or your office chair, curious people like Mr. Curiosity want answers to everything. For this and much more, these are things you consume every day and didn't know how they're made. Swiss Army knife. You've probably seen or maybe even used a classic Swiss Army knife. In fact, it wouldn't be surprising if you've held a really old one in your hands. Curiously, these objects have existed for more than 30 years, so they're quite old. But even so, they still have a very useful purpose today. Believe it or not, they're made incredibly fast. But you might wonder, how are they made? Well, the process might seem difficult, but it's actually faster than you might think. About 2,400 metric tons of steel are imported to factories annually, where the blade's sheets begin to take shape during cutting. About 2 millimeters thick, thanks to a pressure of 50 metric tons. And as you can see in the images, it's a pretty tough material anyway. Then, triangular plastic pieces and some water are used to round the blades, which are pressed until they reach the required 2 millimeter width. The manufacturer's stamp is added, then they're heated to about 1050 degrees for tempering, and finally sharpened. At this point, their characteristic red casing is put on, and most importantly, in the final step, each tool on the knife is checked to make sure it works, especially regarding the thickness. This product has reached hundreds of countries worldwide. While the process isn't very complex, it's still entertaining to watch. Clay targets. There are some objects that you probably would never imagine are so important in different areas like sports or competitions, and probably the one you're about to see is one of them. This is a clay target, and it's the one used in different competitions where you have to shoot at it directly. And even though it might not seem like it, they're actually quite complex to make. To begin with, these targets are made from a material similar to ceramic called obria, which is a petroleum derivative. They're made from resin with some talc added, and the material enters the factory at 80 degrees. And you could say it's the filler agent, while the pitch comes in at 200 degrees, and that's the binding agent. Anyway, a machine transports both to a mixer, which every 10 seconds adds 9 kilos of pitch and 29 kilos of talc to the container. After this process, both substances are cooled, then reheated with hot oil, resulting in a paste-like consistency. That's how, after this, it will be taken to some molds that will give it its characteristic shape, while water is added to make it solidify a little faster. Finally, paint is prepared mainly from carbonate and pigment, biodegradable elements which are mixed separately. And once they're ready, the objects are painted with this mixture. They dry for about 30 seconds. They're ready to use or destroy. And interestingly, they come in different sizes. So now, if you didn't know how one of these targets was made, now you've seen it. That's really interesting, my friend. Shoelaces. Tying our shoes every day can be a task we're very used to, so it's probably an activity you don't pay much attention to. Shoelaces may seem trivial, but they're important. If you've wondered how they're made, here you can see it. First, 8 polyester cones are placed in a machine to wind the thread. These will be secured on one side of a spool, while thread from 8 other cones is placed on the opposite side. The threads will then pass through a machine that winds them to a set length. Interestingly, they're designed to wind nearly 2,500 kilometers of this material. This thread will be placed in a braiding machine, with its ends passing through 3 eyelets to control tension. In this step, all that's left is to arrange the ends for braiding and give the cords their characteristic shape in such a way that the tension is even for each thread. After this, they are placed around about 4 pegs that will rotate to be wound. This way, it can be installed in a kind of machine that will be responsible for covering the cord with an acetate film. Finally, it's halved and small ferrules are attached to the ends using pressure. It's a laborious process, but the result is worth it. Though there are thousands of cord designs and colors, the process is usually the same. Golf clubs. You've probably seen a golf tournament, at least on television, and you've been amazed by the skill with which it's played, thanks to the clubs used in the game. And even though it might not seem like it, there are actually many different types, but they all have something in common. And that's that making them involves a fairly simple process, but one that requires some important details. These details determine how well the ball is struck. At first, you start with a mold. For this, hot wax is poured into a container that has the shape of the golf club we all know. And once it is hardened, a worker cuts off the excess ends until only the head of the club remains. At this stage, a machine joins these wax pieces to others, completing the mold. It will now be bathed in ceramic material on one side and silica sand on the other. This hardens. So once it's ready, a machine will take care of melting the remaining wax. After 5 hours, the mold will be shaken to keep the golf club head, which will then be polished and detailed with the club's logo. Steel bars are heated above 600 degrees, then attached to the heads with epoxy. Up to this point, all that's left is to cut the golf club shaft to the desired length using tape, then add the rubber grip, which is crucial for the golfer's hold. Depending on the model, as you can see, just a few more details need to be added and the golf club will be finished. Gummy vitamins. Most people have taken vitamins, and if you were lucky enough to get the gummy kind, you might be curious about how they're made. In fact, interestingly, the idea of making them is older than it seems, since it dates back to the 20th century, and the concept is still quite popular today. So how are they made? At first, you start with different solid and liquid substances, which are weighed and then added to a mixer along with water. These substances vary, but they can be made up of calcium, magnesium, and other properties. After this step, this preparation will be sent to a laboratory where different samples will be analyzed, with an expert and a machine that simplifies the work. At this stage, a few tests are done to ensure no metal traces remain. Once analyzed, they're ready to be mixed with other substances. On the other hand, the ingredients that will give these gummies the consistency we all know are placed in a tank. That is, some gelatin, a sugar substitute, and measured water and glucose. This is how both substances begin to be mixed, and later this preparation will be placed into molds with the help of a machine. For several hours, these gummies will harden, and finally are transported to a rotating drum that will remove small pieces from the gummies. Now all that's left is to add sugar on top and put them into jars labeled by a machine. It may take up to 3 weeks to make these vitamins, but the results are delicious. Avoid the gummies, Timmy. Office chair. For a long time, it's been very common to see swivel chairs in offices or important studios. Let's be honest, we all recognize its distinctive design with a comfortable backrest. Its classic wheels and soft material make it so comfortable, you won't want to get up for a long time. In fact, if we think about chairs nowadays, they differ a bit from the original model, although their comfort is undeniable. But how are they made? To begin, a worker uses a machine to bend a steel pipe into a sort of square that will become the seat of the chair. Then he proceeds to weld it together with other pipes that will go in the middle of this square. At the same time, he adds several strange springs on top that will help the suspension of the seat once it is installed, as well as small bars on top of these springs, will provide extra stability and a bit of support. After completing the seat, the rest of the chair must be built, including the backrest with lumbar support, armrests, and other parts. They continue by taking leather and cutting pieces with the help of cardboard templates, trying to reduce waste as much as possible. Meanwhile, one worker cuts backrest cushions, while another shapes foam rubber. The latter is quite important, since he is responsible for upholstering these pieces that will be placed directly on the chair. To achieve this, a base structure is installed first, and then the foam rubber upholstered with leather is added. Finally, a mechanism is placed under the seat that will allow the chair to tilt forward or backward. Besides the base with its features, wheels, and details like the headrest, this completes the process, which could explain the high cost in many cases. Food trucks. Today, it's common to see a fast food truck parked in your city. Although there are various types of food trucks, they're all built in much the same way. It's a vehicle with a full kitchen, sometimes including refrigerators or freezers. The creation process depends on the company's goals. But anyway, you're probably wondering, how is it made? First of all, like most companies, the main material used is aluminum. Bars are then placed and manually joined by a worker to support a countertop. Drawers and cabinets are also cut from stainless steel. As you can see, a machine bends it to a perfect 90-degree angle, forming a 1.5 millimeter thick sheet. Once finished, the workers cover the truck's wooden walls with aluminum or stainless steel sheets, leaving the floor unchanged. Now all that's left is to install the cabinets and countertops made earlier. After installing appliances like a refrigerator, freezer, and kitchen equipment, the crucial electrical box is added. This will supply power to the water pump, stove, lighting, and more, as well as to an energy transfer box. Finally, only the last details remain, such as the service window and the gas, and of course, decorating the exterior of the truck. That's how these classic trucks are made, and although it doesn't involve a very complicated process, it's definitely very entertaining to watch. Subscribe.